You may have noticed these small, unclickable gaps between the navigation list items. You'll usually see default whitespace like this between elements when you set their display value to inline or inline block. Now, these spaces won't go away even if I set the list item margin values to 0. And this isn't a browser bug, it's just the way setting elements to inline or inline block works. You see, the browser interprets the line breaks and spaces in the HTML as content. For example, words in a paragraph are in line with each other and have spaces before and after them. So the browser adds the spaces between these inline and inline block items, just like it adds spaces between words. If you don't want these gaps in your design, there are a few ways you can remove them. First, you can place the closing li and opening li tags next to each other in the HTML so that there are no spaces in the markup between the closing and opening list item tags. You can also remove the closing list item tags in the navigation. I prefer not to write my HTML code this way, so an easier solution is to apply a small negative right margin to the list items. Inside my Style Sheets media query, I'm going to create a new rule that targets the list items inside main nav. To apply the negative right margin, I'm going to use the margin right property, and as the value, I'll type -4 pixels. When I refresh my page, you can see how the negative right margin undoes that default white space between the list items. So the negative margin pulls the list items towards each other to close the gaps. Keep in mind that the element's font size affects the size of the gaps between inline and inline block elements. So the larger the font size, the more you'll need to compensate with negative margins. So here, the value -4 pixels works great when the font size is set to the browser's default size of 16 pixels. If your font size value is smaller or larger than 16 pixels, you'll need to experiment with the negative margin values. For this layout, I don't mind the spaces between the navigation links because the extra space creates a clear visual separation between the links. In fact, I'm going to use that space to my advantage, and I'll even add a little more margin for separation. So I'm going to change the margin right value to 12 pixels. So now I have a little more separation between the navigation items.